Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Sayyida Alina Batul and I'm a foundation level student in Rehan School. So today I'm going to ask some questions on the topic of the command to be quiet from Maya and she have to give me answers. So let's start. Hi Maya, how are you?
Hi there. I'm doing well, thanks. Ready to dive into your questions on Shh. What's your first one?
So my first question to you is what does mean in everyday communication?
Shh. Mostly tells someone to be quiet, like you want them to stop talking or make less noise. It's super common when you're trying not to wake someone up or keep a secret or just want a moment of calm.
Okay, so my next question from you is where did the sound originally come from?
That's a good question. The sound itself is almost universal. Every language has something similar. It likely comes from imitating the sound of air passing through your mouth when you try to stay quiet. As for how the word started being used specifically, it's hard to pinpoint, but seems to have evolved as people started vocalizing the act of silencing.
So now tell me, is she considered a word or just a sound?
It's more of an onomatopoeia, a word that actually sounds like what it represents. Think of words like buzz or oof. Mimics the sound of quiet, so it's not really a traditional word with a proper definition in the dictionary, but it functions like one because everyone understands its meaning.
How far back in the history can we trace
Good question. I haven't found documentation on exactly when it became common, but it likely goes way back. Since it's such a natural sound people make when quieting someone down, it's probably existed in various cultures for centuries,
Yeah.
probably long before there were even written records to track it. Sound based words like sh tend to pop up pretty naturally in language.
Okay, so my next question from you is did ancient civilization use similar sounds for silence or not?
Let me think about that. Ancient civilizations definitely understood silence, of course, but the specific sound that's probably unique to languages that have similar phonetics. Instead, different cultures would have had different ways to tell someone to quiet down. Some would use
Okay.
hand signals, others would use specific words, meaning be quiet. Silence itself was actually pretty rare in ancient cities, though there was always street noise, animal sounds, religious ceremonies going on. So rather than specifically saying,
So
right?
now tell me, is universal across different cultures?
Uh, Let me see about that. Actually, it's pretty interesting. While a lot of people recognize globally, some cultures use different sounds. Some Bantu cultures in South Africa use a sharp s sound instead. And in Thailand, they'll say choo choo. So it's not 100% universal, even though that shushing sound feels pretty natural across many places.
How has Shu evolved over time?
That's a good question about time. We've covered quite a bit already. We've touched on where the sound might come from, what it technically is linguistically, and whether it's used everywhere. What kind of questions do you have left to cover?
Okay, are there written records of in early text?
Let me check that for you. Ah, that's tricky. Because started as more of a sound than a proper word. Early written records are rare. The closest we get is looking at similar roots, like the Middle English word haste around the 1300s, which meant silence. But experts think the actual sound itself goes way back, possibly to a time before written language existed. Some theories suggest even early humans might have made that hissing sound to warn others or mimic calming sounds.
Okay, so now tell me, what role did storytelling play in spreading the sound?
Could you repeat that last part about storytelling? How did
What role did
the
storytelling play in spreading the sound?
transcription might have got it. Storytelling probably didn't really spread directly since it's such a natural sound people make regardless. But storytelling might help us understand how certain cultural attitudes toward quiet evolved. Things like respectful silences during important stories, or maybe characters who used to create tension or calm.
How did become widely understood globally?
Let me quickly check that. The internet made it spread faster, of course. Memes, videos, social media all help make sounds universally recognizable. But before that, a lot of it probably had to do with it being such a natural sound humans make across cultures when they're trying to quiet someone. It travels pretty intuitively when people hear it. Plus, TV and movies definitely help standardize it in global media.
Okay, so my next question from you is, why do humans instinctively respond to
That's a good instinct question. One idea is that the shh sound actually reminds us of the sounds babies hear in the womb, like that swishing of blood. That's probably why it's so soothing. It triggers some deep, calming feelings we have from when we were being protected in the womb. Also, the sound gets your attention without being really jarring. It has a natural way of making us stop and listen.
why is you often used with children?
Mm,
Does
that
create
womb thing
calmness or tension?
just talked about, babies are especially sensitive to those kinds of sounds. Also, kids are naturally louder and more energetic, so people will instinctively try to quiet them with shh. It's simple to
How does react to our mind?
you mean react? How does using shh affect our minds? It's actually
Yeah.
pretty fascinating. On one hand, it's this super basic signal. We're literally telling someone to quiet their inner world and asking them to quiet their speech at the same time. Does that feel strangely intimate? and
Why
almost
is
controlling
shh
if you
often
really
used with children?
good question. I think it's because kids are still figuring out how to regulate their emotions and energy levels, right? Becomes the shortcut instead of having to explain calm down or we need to be quiet now. It's this instant signal that taps into their natural instincts to soothe. The pattern is probably hardwired in our brains from when we were babies being rocked and told to quiet down. It creates this immediate sense of security, though adult gets different vibes completely.
Does
What makes you
does
curious about it being sorry, were you asking me
does
something there?
does create calmness or tension?
Right. So does sh- create calmness or tension? That's
Yeah.
interesting. It actually goes both, doesn't it? For kids, especially when they're upset, it can be hugely calming. Something about the sound and intention sends this instant safe space signal. But with adults, especially when you're trying to shut someone down mid sentence, that's pure tension creator. The difference feels like it's all in how you mean it. Is it comforting or controlling?
Why do we associate shh with silence and secrecy?
I think that association with silence and secrecy comes from the sound itself. It's like this gentle but firm shutdown of noise. And it feels a little forbidden, like you're being let in on something others shouldn't
So
hear.
now,
Especially
can you tell me how do tone and volume change its meaning?
absolutely. That's where it gets really interesting. A soft, low shh, like you're comforting a scared child. It's reassurance, tenderness, safety. Then crank up the volume, make it sharper. It's instant dismissal, annoyance, almost aggressive. Even
Can
the tempo
shh
matters.
be perceived as rude?
I'm not catching that clearly. Could you say that again?
Can be perceived as rude?
Right. Can it be perceived as rude? Absolutely. Especially if it's used on adults or with too much force. It carries this power dynamic, like you're shutting someone down or dismissing their thoughts. It's like suddenly there's this hierarchy in the conversation. What do you think makes it cross that line between helpful and rude? Do you think it's just the tone or something else too?
What emotions are linked to this noun?
So many. It's actually a pretty emotionally loaded sound. For the person giving it can be anything from genuine care and protection to control or annoyance.
Okay.
But for the
So my
receiver,
next question
they
for
might
you
feel
is why is it effective in gaining attention?
that's such a good question. Why does get our attention so well? I think it works because it's this stark shift from normal sound levels. Suddenly everything goes quieter. It's like a spotlight being shown on silence. Our brains are naturally programmed to notice changes, and is this jarring shift. Plus, there's this mystery to it too. When someone suddenly goes quiet, you wonder what they're keeping secret from you and what's so important that they have to tell you quietly, which
Does
makes you
culture
lean in.
influence how people react to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Cultural context changes everything with shh. In some cultures, being direct about quieting someone is fine, even seen as practical. But in others, there's this deep sense of respect for not interrupting or being forward, and might come across as pretty impolite or controlling. It's like when you're traveling, learning to read those cultural cues makes all the difference. Have you noticed differences in that yourself when you've been around different cultures?
What are similar expressions in other languages?
Hmm. Let me see what equivalents exist. So it turns out a lot of languages have their own versions. French uses chut, German's got PST or pst, and Spanish speakers use cheese or something that sounds like toots. There are even more like ways in Finnish or Joes in Afrikaans. They all have that same vibe though. They're short, kind of hissy sounds designed to cut through the noise and say quiet down. Makes you
How do
wonder.
people use gestures along with
Yeah, that's a great point. It's almost always paired with a gesture, isn't it? Usually that classic finger to lips motion, like you're physically closing their mouth or literally sealing the information. It feels so instinctive and universal. Have you noticed how
Okay.
many times the gesture happens almost before the sound? It's almost like a mini performance, right? Like here's
Can
this script and here's how you
can
receive.
replace words in communication?
You mean can replace words in actual communication?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting question. In a way, yeah, it just totally can, especially in certain moments, like with babies or when you're trying to quiet someone really quickly in an emergency. But it's not a replacement in the long term. True communication needs the context that words give you, all the meaning, the emotion, the nuance. What's your take on whether could genuinely replace real conversation?
How is it used in storytelling or literature?
Let me think. So, in stories, sh- mostly shows up when authors want to make a scene feel real. Like they're actually mimicking the sound someone would make to be quiet. It also adds this element of mystery or tension depending on how it's used. And apparently, the longer you stretch it out, like the more intense it gets, which is pretty clever. It's even used in, you're welcome. Was that helpful for your project?
How do children learn the meaning of
Let me check that. So it's a bunch of things. They figure out pretty early that sounds affect people, like when they realize they can wake someone up by making noise. But there's also this idea that might actually sound like what babies heard in the womb, that whooshing sound, which is probably why it's so calming. And of course,
when is
just
it
hearing it
appropriate to
over.
say
Could you clarify what you meant by save? I'm not
when
quite catching what
when
you're asking
is
about.
it when is it appropriate to say
Oh, right. When's the right time to use sh? I'd say it depends, usually when someone's being too loud or when you want to be discreet about something. But you also need to think about who you're saying it to. It's totally different with a kid versus an adult. Plus, sometimes it comes off as rude, so gauging the situation is everything. What do you think
is
makes for a good time to use? I
more
think,
sound based than language based?
oh, that's a fascinating question. Yeah, I actually think it's way more sound based than language based, even though we sometimes think of it as a word. It's like ps or oop, right? So you're getting ready to go.
How is used in classrooms?
You got it. Let me quickly look it up. So it turns out sh is used a lot in classrooms, mostly to signal students to be quiet without needing to shout. Some educators are actually shifting away from it, though, realizing that some noise isn't always bad, especially for language learners. And get this, speech therapists use it when teaching kids how to speak because it helps with forming the sh sound. It's even
What
used in
role
hearing
does it
tests for
play
kids with
in
hearing aids.
libraries and quiet places?
Let me check that quickly. Shh is basically the go-to sound when you need to signal quiet in places like libraries or movie theaters, right? It's just understood across cultures. Though, interestingly, a lot of libraries are starting to offer more than just silent spaces. They're becoming more like community centers now with different zones for different types of activity. Still, that shh remains the international symbol of quiet, please.
Okay, Maya, so my last question from you is, can be seen as controlling behavior?
Absolutely. That's actually one of the biggest criticisms of using, especially with adults. The act of telling someone to be quiet, even with just that sound, can come off. I wasn't quite
Okay,
catching those last few words. Could you?
okay,
So,
viewers. This was
as
my
I was
session
saying,
with Maya on the topic of shh. So I hope you guys liked it, enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. This is Alina Batul. Allah Hafiz and Pakistan Zindabad.